What is going on, my fellow Omi homies? It's Foster, and I'm back at it again with another VeVe Anycomi Live, featuring the one and only Mr. Cavell Anderson. Cavell, how you doing, man?
I'm good. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, brother. Thank you for taking the time out of your Saturday to join me and discuss a lot of the events that have been happening in the community recently. There's a lot of stuff to obviously go over with everything, and I think it's probably a little bit of a mixed bag reaction from the community. I think some people are very for some of the stuff that's happened, and I think some people are obviously also against it. So, just kind of want to get your thoughts. Like, just first thing that pops to mind, like the last 12 hours with this announcement coming out from VeVe, talking about disabling collectible transfers, them essentially acknowledging that bots are essentially beating them right now, and that they're going to take drastic actions to try and address this. How do you feel about that?
I'm actually pretty bullish about the whole thing. I like the fact that they're finally taking a stand against the bot users, and they're getting aggressive because the bot users kind of got like they got aggressive. They went on the offense, and now VeVe is clapping back quick. Like they already putting out a statement. Like it was no hesitation, and like it's just the bot people they decide to attack. Then VeVe instantly comes out with a solution, and I think that's a fast turnaround, especially for VeVe. Like they're the king of soon, so like that's a pretty quick turnaround. So I
Yeah,
like it.
100%. No, I'm glad to hear that you say that. Obviously, I feel very similar to you in that, when push came to shove, like something was going to need to be done about this. I know for, quite a while, VeVe has indicated that, we have a bot issue, but it's not really as bad as people think it is. And then, whether they knew or not is another conversation entirely, but it's all obviously come to light at this point that the bot issue is far more prevalent than we realized, or at least I think a lot of people wanted to admit. And regardless of the fact that you made videos talking about the bot issue, I made videos back in the day talking about the bot issue. A lot of times, I think people assume that we're naive to a lot of the stuff that's going on, and I think VeVe wasn't helping their own case when it came to addressing this concern, because it felt like they were almost kind of being dismissive, like, guys, it's really not as big of an issue as you think it is. But there's no denying it now. I mean, the blockchain doesn't lie, and that's one of the great things about crypto is this information is publicly available. And shout out to the people in the back end that have been doing the due diligence and really doing the research to bring some of these statistics to light. I think on that Givenchy drop, people were saying 74% of collectibles went to accounts that either had 0 or 1 collectible on them. And while they may not all be bots necessarily, it's safe to say that probably a significant portion of them are. And so it's nice to see them taking action now before we continue to grow any further and things truly get out of control. How do you anticipate this disabling of transfers in the short term impacting bots, if at all?
I think that they lose the incentive because how do you get them now? Like especially since they're adding KYC. So like basically you're gonna have your collectibles stuck on your account, so you would have to KYC every single account in order to get it off now. So I think that kind of like makes the bots not effective at all, to be honest. It doesn't really make sense to bot it because you won't be able to get it off the app without KYC. So, or it makes it a hell of a lot more difficult to get a bunch of fake KYC accounts and things like that, like where you have to get all that information. It's just it's a much bigger hassle than it's been historically on VeVe. So I think that changes the game. Like it's a good move.
100%. I agree with you. And like you said, it definitely doesn't eliminate the bots entirely, but it likely makes it, significantly more difficult. And I think if you can continue to impose as many roadblocks as possible, that you can also balance as not disenfranchising the core user base. Because the last thing that we want is to make it so that no one wants to use the app. Like it's great to combat bots, but if you make it so that no one else can easily use the app and it becomes impossible. And I know that you were an advocate of that, last week or so when the initial KYC conversation came up. And obviously you had expressed some concerns at the time about having KYC and it limiting access to certain individuals from the app, specifically children. Now that this is coming out and we know it's happening, like it's not, hey, we hope anymore. It's like KYC is happening. Do you still share that same stance? Or even if you do, how do you foresee that being able to be circumvented by the regular user base who just wants to use the app for the purpose of collecting and enjoying the collectibles?
I think that KYC has always. I've never been against KYC. I've been against using it as a defense in the way where people can't sign up or do anything on the app without KYC first, like cash out and maybe even in order to do drops. Okay, that's one thing. But how are people going to get to the metaverse? Do you have the KYC to get to the metaverse? I feel like how they implement something like this is more important than the fact that they're implementing it. I feel like if they implement it in a way where regular people can still sign on and do things non-marketplace and non-crypto related, and you can still onboard users to experience certain other things, maybe I think that would be great. But it's just going to come down to how they do it, because this can be a massive barrier to entry still, especially if everything is behind a KYC wall, because people in other countries, they might not have IDs and things like that. It's just tough. It's a lot more tough than it should be, than it needs to be, because everyone doesn't have everything that they need to KYC. So I think that this does create an opportunity. I know it's a lot of people in the Philippines who wants to using crypto and stuff like Axie Infinity to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And that's life-changing money for them, what they've been able to make. And I think VeVe can do the same thing for so many people, but they're kind of they're running the risk of limiting the impact they can actually have. So I want to see them do it the right way.
100%, man. And that's obviously the hope, right? Is to make sure that they strike that balance. And I think in the meantime, disabling collectible transfers, well, it sucks for regular users, especially, I've seen a lot of, well, maybe not a lot, but I've seen some people tweet out, hey, I'm, my full family participates in the drops, and, my kids obviously don't load gems on their accounts themselves. We'll transfer collectibles to sell to get gems for them, or whatever the case may be. And they're kind of frustrated, obviously. But even then, I think in the long term, this is for the greater good for them to take these steps in order to try and prevent as much as possible bots from taking over. Because now, like you said, none of the steps that they've taken thus far prevent bots from actually landing a drop itself. But once that bot now has that drop, they either have to sell it on the marketplace as soon as possible for an extremely discounted rate to make sure that they can get the gems. But now they're selling a bunch of collectibles on different accounts, and they can't consolidate because they can't transfer the collectibles to one account to sell them all off of one account. So you're making their lives more difficult, which in turn is also making the core user base lives more difficult. But I feel as though moving forward with the implementation of OUP and MCP, they're likely to add in some incentives for the core users who will be eligible for those programs. And of course, a lot of those people won't be the 0 to 1 collectible accounts that opened up yesterday. What are your thoughts on them implementing incentives? I know Dr. Profit put out a tweet this morning that was getting quite a bit of engagement. What were your thoughts on VeVe implementing some form of program or utilizing the existing avenues of OUP and MCP to allocate a certain percentage of drops specifically for those users, and then limiting the amount of collectibles that are available for everyone else to incentivize people to actually start collecting and participate in the programs? What are your thoughts on that?
It creates another barrier to entry, but at the same time, I definitely think that people should be collectors. This is a collector's app, so they should have to work towards certain things. I think that right now it's hard to really wrap your head around it and think about it and consider something like this, because it's so unfair, since 100% of the appeal to VeVe right now is really the marketplace and drops. So it's like you're limiting basically all that you do. You're limiting all that you have, and that's a big barrier to entry. But when you have the VeVe-verse, you have the Metaverse, there's so much stuff to do in there that the marketplace or the drops is just going to be a small, tiny part of what VeVe actually is, and then it's going to be seen as a lot more fair. So I think that's a good idea overall. I think that it is fair. I think that there is going to be complaints doing it at this stage, but as they do release other things, I think that it's going to become more obvious that it was a great decision.
So. Yeah, I agree as well. I think it's funny because I put out a tweet because people were against this idea, and granted, I believe that the app should be accessible for everyone that's using it for its intended purpose. But it's funny because, people have become so complacent with the bot issue for such a long time. They just accept the fact that bots are getting all the drops. And that's fine. People are like, okay, whatever. But then, people are putting out suggestions like, hey, we should give incentives for OUP and MCP for those users to be able to be guaranteed to secure a percentage of those drops. And everyone was freaking out and calling it unfair. And I just thought it was a little funny because, well, we're fine with bots getting the drop and that's fine. But the second we're like, hey, we should reward our core user base, it's like, well, no, now it's become pay to win and we're giving people an advantage. And it's like, okay, well, we need to strike a balance somewhere. And where that balance is, we're really only going to, figure it out over time. But it is interesting to see. I was looking at the drop today. It still looked like quite a few, no profile picture, random name accounts did get the drop. I'm going to be interested to see how that plays out in the marketplace, though, like what the prices end up being, just based on that, because it's going to be hard to see how they're going to consolidate their collectibles, whether it's just going to be that they listen for super low prices and the rest of the user base is able to pick up things cheaper. But at the end of the day, they still need to address the bots because no one should have to go into the secondary just because a bot consistently beats them out. But speaking of today's drop, how have you felt about the quality of the drops lately? I mean, obviously there's been an issue with bots that VeVe is looking to address, but then we've also noticed, Electra was, maybe not up to the quality standards that we're used to expecting on the platform. I know some people also had some concerns about the drop today, the quality. Have you noticed or had any concerns about the quality of recently?
Honestly, I have not been. I don't really go for drops, so I go for drops once in a blue moon. I actually went for today's, but I didn't pay any type of attention to it. I don't really. Honestly, as much as I make content and stuff like that, do you think I'm just all over it? But at this point, I'm chilling. I'm waiting. It's a lot of problems, a lot of issues, and drops is really the least one of the least things I'm worried about. I think that they're going to get that right, and there is going to be some improvements. I heard about the Electra memes and everything. I did see the difference. I saw some side by side comparisons and stuff like that, and then a different type of gold on the Disney ones. Like the I saw there was two different type of golds on like Winnie the Pooh compared to some of the older ones that was dropped. So yeah, I've been seeing some of the stuff in terms of quality, and some people think that is because of Trevor's not there anymore and stuff, but and maybe there's some truth to that. I know he's very strict on the details.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty. It's a more simple problem to fix in comparison to a lot of the other stuff they have going on, like the crypto side of things, the metaverse. Like I just think I like to focus more so on big picture because at the end of the day, we know that they can update these assets whenever they want. So
Right.
yeah, if they're sacrificing quality to get out some token related stuff, I'm perfectly fine with that as long as it does get some upgrades in the future. So yeah.
No, I agree with that as well. And I definitely, the Electro was pretty comical to look at. It definitely was not their best work. I mean, I try and balance these conversations because it's important to recognize fault, but I think context is also important as well. And for those of you that are watching that may not be aware, one of the main studios that VeVe has been using for the production of their collectibles is based out of Ukraine. And obviously certain world events are taking place right now, which are impacting the usage of certain resources that they had previously accessible to them. So I think it's just important to remember that, I'm sure they're aware of it as well. Like they're not completely tone deaf. Like they know when something's not up to their normal quality and standards, but they also have a schedule that they have to maintain. And I'm sure they have a lot of pressure from licensors. Like this is just my opinion, but I really feel like, and I'm not sure how you feel about it, but I don't personally think that Disney overly cares about the fact that VeVe's having a bot issue because every drop still sells out in under a second and they're still getting those secondary royalties from all the sales that take place in the marketplace. So I don't really think Disney's sitting there going like, yeah, I'm cool with you taking a month off of drops, even if VeVe in the back end is like, hey, we probably need to take some time. I mean, we saw it with Disney Plus, with the rollout that happened in November. VeVe clearly was not ready to roll out those collectibles just with the scaling of the app that they needed to do. And they did it anyways. And I'm assuming a large part of that, I think Alex came out and said at one point as well, like, well, no, Disney said you're launching these collectibles, so we're launching the collectibles. So I think people sometimes forget that the licensors play a large role in putting out this content, and everything from the licensor is signed off. So like, well, we don't love the look of this collectible necessarily today. Disney signed off on it before it was released. Like VeVe can't release anything until that happens. So even if they're concerned about it in the short term, I'm sure they'll go back. They've done it historically. Johnny Dunn has talked about this. They've gone back and, updated collectibles. They did it with Starfire. They did it with Ultraman. So I'm sure once they get the opportunity to do so, they'll go back and touch up the collectibles that they feel are not up to the premium standard that we've come to expect on the platform. But it's interesting to look at some of them sometimes, and it really is a night and day comparison. You look at Steamboat Willie, the black and white, and you look at this collectible, and it's like it's not quite the same, but it is what it is, right? It is what it is. Other measures that could be implemented to address this concern. Obviously, we know that they're disabling collectible transfers, which is a good first step until they can implement KYC. What are some other things that you would like to see them implement in order to address this that doesn't necessarily impact the average user? As a perfect example, the Face ID with KYC, that could be good. Like, do you have any thoughts on anything that they should be implementing in order to kind of address this bot issue?
Truthfully, I'm more of I'm like, and this is going to come out the wrong way, but I'm actually not. I'm a fan of the bots, to be honest. Like, I mean, it makes things much more affordable. Like if real people are actually getting these drops, most of the opportunity that's there would not exist right now, and it would be a hell of a lot harder for the majority of people if bots if bots weren't there. So I don't like anything that takes away or makes it more difficult for the average user to just come in, pick up the app like a random kid, because when things start to trend and go viral and stuff like that and really spread around the world, it's mainly young people finding something, and then they're the ones who who shares it with their parents and stuff like that. And kids basically run the world. Children are the future. So like that, we need it to be an easy experience for them and easy experience for everyone involved basically. So I don't think that all these drastic measures to combat bots, when there's no stopping bots, you're never going to completely stop bots. And right now, like a lot of people don't realize, like people are going to realize once drops start coming out and this stuff is priced crazy, like the people who actually secure drops, they're going to be happy because their collectibles are going to be more valuable as soon as you buy it. But the people who miss out on it, now you can't afford it in the secondary market. So we've been preaching for the longest, like, yo, the secondary market is huge opportunity. Now it's not going to be that anymore. Like you're going to have to spend a lot more still. I mean, because it's still going to be a big opportunity, but it's just going to be more expensive. So I think people are going to miss these times. People don't think about the big picture. Everybody's just like everybody just wants it today, as opposed to how this is actually going to impact you a few weeks from now or a month or so from now. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think, and I want to make it clear, Cavell and I don't support bots. We don't use bots, but I also agree and understand with the upside of having bots, because like you said, bots versus real users, bots are going to race to the floor to list their collectible to make a profit, whereas real users are far more likely to recognize and appreciate the value of the items that they're holding, and therefore less likely to list it at lower prices, which is a good point. Speaking of those users, it's interesting because we've seen VeVe come out ever since like November when we onboarded Disney, and they've started to give us numbers of the active monthly users, and they define an active monthly user as someone who logs onto the app at least, I think it's like 3 to 4 times a month. But we've seen through the blockchain data, shout out, unfortunately I can't remember the name of the people right now, but there's been a couple guys who have been really like data mining the blockchain data and have found that at any given time, I think the maximum amount of wallets that have held a collectible was like 550 to 570,000 accounts. And we know that they're claimed to have over 2 million active monthly users. So there's obviously a discrepancy there. Now, an active monthly user could still log onto the app and not have a collectible. Like I could log onto the app without collecting and just be like, oh, I wonder what's happening on the app. Is cash out available? Nope. Okay, I'll check next week. And I could do that once a week and I'd be classified as an active monthly user. That being said, how early do you believe that we are right now? Because the numbers that were run were pretty incredible. Like I think there was only 8,000 accounts that had over 100 collectibles / comics total in them, which is pretty incredible. And I think there was only over 500 collectibles. There was only it was like 1,000 people, and there's only 2 people that have over 10,000 collectibles in their accounts. So like, I feel like that to me is a bullish sentiment, because we realize that we know now that the vast majority of the primary market activity has been conducted by bots, at least most recently. But we're seeing the people that are holding those collectibles, like there's really only like 8,000 core users that have like over 100 collectibles. Not to say if you don't have under 100 collectibles, you're not a core user, but like actual collectors. So it's interesting because when you think about it, the drop size, like I always thought like, wow, you're only releasing, 15,000 collectibles for 2 million users. But do we really have 2 million users? And so it's interesting to see the growth in the short term. I almost feel like we're earlier than I thought we were. I thought the numbers were larger than they were, but now that I've actually seen it on the blockchain, I feel like there's not actually as many users as we think there are, which means that once we get, at least in my opinion, to the legitimate 2 million users that are actual users, some of the prices that we could see for these collectibles could be pretty incredible. Like, do you have any thoughts on that? I don't know if you've seen the numbers, but
Yeah, I've been seeing the tweets and stuff, and it also like a lot of people complain because they can never get drops as well. So a lot of this could be people coming on trying to get the drop, not getting the drop, and just that being a constant thing. Chances are the majority of times that you go for drops, you're not going to get one.
right.
That's just how the math works. If it's a lot of people on going for every single drop and there's a little amount of additions, there's not going to be a lot of people who actually are able to secure these drops. And then you have the OGs who actually know all the tricks and stuff. You got people using Ethernet cables, people clicking a button, hands tapping at the right spot at the right time. If you're a new user, you're never going to guess something like that. You're not going to be prepared for that. And at the rate that they sign up, if they're really getting 30,000 signups a day, there's absolutely no way these 30,000 people know the new trick the day that they sign up. So it's like we get more and more people, but it's less and less people who actually know how to secure drops. So I wouldn't be surprised if a bulk of the new people that come on never secure anything. And but that does go back to people's argument about, okay, what type of experience is this person having when they sign up? Maybe they join and then never come back on the app, because it is a pretty bad experience if that's what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, what was the original question?
We were just talking about whether or not we were actually early or not based on the amount of real users that we likely have on the app versus the amount of users that VeVe is classifying that they have, but it actually may not be the case based on the numbers. And obviously we're never going to know 100% for sure, because once again, like I said, there could be active users that just log on that never get a drop and they'd be considered an active monthly user, but they don't have any collectibles in their wallet because they've committed to not buying anything on the secondary marketplace unless they can get things on drop. I know my mom, who's, I got her to get in. She's never landed a drop, but I'll text her every time there's like a relatively big drop of like, hey, you could try for this one. And she knows the techniques. She hasn't gotten one yet, but I mean, there's tons of casual people on the app right now. I think it's important to remember as well that VeVe's done no formal marketing yet. And I think people forget about that. Like anyone that is on the app right now is here via word of mouth. So whether they found out about the project through a friend or they were searching crypto and came across, your channel, for instance, or Taps's channel or someone else in the community, like they're finding out about these projects just from essentially word of mouth. Like there's been no formal marketing campaign. So it'll be interesting to see once they rectify these issues. And I think that's part of the reason why they haven't marketed is, why are you going to market an unfinished product or a product that's not working to the standard that you expect it to work? Like you're not going to market something that's crap. Like it's, you know what I mean? Like there's really no point. What is the point in marketing right now to, a couple million people, and then you complete that marketing campaign, they join, they see that they can't get a drop. It looks like bots are getting the drop. They can't cash out. Like, why are they joining the app at that point, right? So once we see some of this fundamental and foundational things come in, whether it be MTL or OMI to NFT, the web app, it's going to be, we're going to see that transition. And speaking of that transition, obviously we have a lot of catalysts coming for the project. I know some people feel differently than others. Hippos is an example. He's talking about the issues with the project. Definitely, that's what we're here talking about right now. It's important to acknowledge the shortcomings when you recognize them. I don't think anyone's hiding from them at this point. I think we all know what they are. Some people are moving on, and that's understandable. There's other projects and opportunities. And if people don't see the long-term vision and don't believe that there'll be a resolution, then they will move on, and that's their right. But speaking of the catalysts, like what are some catalysts that you feel as though is going to turn? I mean, outside of the bots, we've kind of talked about that, but like, what are the other catalysts that you're looking forward to? Maybe one or two that you think would be the most impactful for the entire project over the next quarter or so that you hope are rolled out.
The entire project, I think, the biggest catalyst for me, I'm a huge fan of the VeVeverse. Like that's going to change the game because it brings and like the gaming aspect, some type of gamification that comes in, because that's going to increase activity and engagement and actually give people something to do. Right now, people are under the impression that VeVe is about drops, and this honestly goes back to how early we are. If you think about and marketing, if you think about marketing, that's like, imagine Disney World marketing their gift shop. The theme park isn't ready yet; just the gift shop is ready. Imagine them marketing that, or them that being the primary focus of what Disney World is. No, there's so many other rides. You have so many other areas and things to do in Disney World, but just the gift shop, and that's literally what VeVe has compared what we have to. Like they said,
Yeah.
this is the gift shop. The objective of VeVe is for them to create the experience surrounding the collectibles. And right now, all we have is the collectibles. So VeVe really hasn't even got started working really yet on what VeVe is going to specialize in. We haven't seen what VeVe specializes in yet. Right now, they're just taking popular models and reselling them. Like that's really what's going on. And we haven't really even seen what VeVe is going to do yet. So taking that into consideration, you have to realize that we're super, super early, and these catalysts could really take this project to heights that people don't understand. And a lot of people just don't know where the metaverse is going. The metaverse by itself is literally capable of just driving this so much farther than people know. People say that, oh, why do you think VeVe can have the same type of market cap as Amazon? And because Amazon could literally exist within a metaverse. Now, is that VeVe's plans to have an Amazon within their metaverse? No idea. We don't know. Like, but this is the type of suggestions that the community could be getting together and giving them. Because in Ready Player One, there was a scene in the movie where he literally ordered something from in the metaverse and it got shipped to his house. He did the whole new suit that he was wearing. So that's a part of metaverses. And there's vehicles, of course. There's different game modes. There's people working. There's all types of stuff that could take place in the metaverse. So any of these trillion-dollar businesses that you see online, they could exist within a metaverse. So if VeVe even hits on a fraction of that, just the metaverse by itself could be crazy. And then we already know that there's going to be games coming that burns the OMI token as well. So that's supposed to be coming soon. Well, from what I hear. And I'm excited about that too. This is going to be so much different stuff that's going to be game changing for this project. And people are like people are saying that they're going to leave. People are giving up on the project this early. I think that you just need to really understand, you expect VeVe to really change the world in year 2. Like how is that realistic in the slightest? Like, you think that something that has never been done in the history of mankind, this company could do it in what, a year and some change? Like, come on, like that doesn't even make sense. But yeah, that's people, I guess.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you, man. I think I actually really liked that in the most recent AMA, they didn't touch on the VeVeverse at all. I really liked that because I feel like they're trying to do a better job of expectation setting. And I think historically the problem is that they probably talk a little too much, and they'll let us in on their passions and what they're excited about and what they're working towards. But then the problem is it creates an expectation. And when you create an expectation, you're setting someone up for failure if you can't deliver, right? So they've set themselves up for failure too much by letting us in too much on what they're trying to accomplish. And as much as it's been great because it's given us content to speak about and things to be excited about, it's the whole when argument and the soon, right? And then it doesn't give any benefit to anyone because we're looking forward to MTL, but then Cable One's MTL coming, and then instead of focusing on things that are tangible and that we can focus on, it's always, well, MTL is not here yet. So it's not the fact that MTL is coming, which is bullish for the project. It's the fact that MTL isn't here yet. And that's the only conversation that takes place. And it's unfortunate because people will often focus on the negative. And right now there is more negative to focus on than there has been historically. So it is really unfortunate, but I do agree with the metaverse really changing things. And I mean, when Alfred Kahn himself came out and said, like, VeVe is just going to be a gift shop. Like, you know, you're going to get off a ride at Disneyland. Like, the VeVe is just the gift shop portion of everything else. That's pretty incredible to hear. And I think people forget that because, like you said, they're in the here and now, and they're not focused on the future. They're just focused on, like, hey, there's problems right now and I don't want to deal with these. And I mean, that's fine. Like I said, everyone has their own path and journey. And I'm not here to convince anyone to stay or tell anyone to leave, but you know, I hope that people realize that we're here to let people know, you know, we've been here. You know what I mean? Like, next week is, I mean, I say it as if like next year is a year of me being in the project, only a year, But in crypto, like that's a lifetime, man. Like to have been a part of this project for a year and seeing how far they've come, it's actually pretty incredible. And I mean, a lot of the people that are saying these things weren't the people that were here when the market was closed for a month back in April of last year. You know what I mean? Like they weren't here when drops were only happening once every 2 weeks and the marketplace would shut down and the app would glitch and people weren't able to even click on drops. Like no one realizes those things existed. Like we were here pre-Disney, pre-Marvel, pre-Givenchy, pre all of these big things. Like it's just crazy to see the changes that have happened. And Citibank came out. I saw an article. They said they estimate that the metaverse could be a $13 trillion a year industry. And you want to talk like the entire market cap of crypto is under $2 trillion. And they're saying just the metaverse could be a $13 trillion a year industry. So like to touch on your point, like even if VeVe only got 1% of that market share, that's $130 billion a year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's just off of the metaverse. That's not off of anything else. So it is pretty incredible when you realize that in what's most likely to be the most successful metaverse. Well, the most successful metaverse is likely going to be the one that's tied to the largest IP who have an incentive to continually add value to that user base for using that metaverse. So if Disney partners hypothetically with VeVe to create portions of the VeVeverse, and you owning Disney or Marvel collectibles gives you an incentive within the like you need to own one of those collectibles to go to that section of the VeVeverse, or you own those collectibles and you hold them for 12 months and they give you a 1-day pass to go to Disney World. You know what I mean? And even if that's all that it is, like the airdrops and the possibilities, we saw them add a promo code in and they didn't really make a big deal about it, but like just the amount of things that they can add. And we already saw with Disney Plus week, people getting 3 months or even a year free of Disney Plus. Like that's value. And people don't really focus on it because the app has problems right now. But once that happens, it's going to be, it's going to be pretty massive. So I'm looking forward to that. And when it comes is obviously the biggest question.
I think we need more investors in the group, in the project. I feel like a lot of people are not here to be investors. A lot of people are just here for get rich quick schemes like that. That's what people think that this is. People are not looking at this like an investment, because when I look at an investment, I look at what it's going to be. How long do I want to be in this investment, which is for me 5 to 10 years, and what can happen in that amount of time, depending on the project. Obviously, it's a per project basis. Some investments, you look at it, you're like, okay, this can do something crazy in 2 or 3 years. Then other ones is 5 or 10. Yeah. When you focus on the fact that NFTs, I don't think that NFTs are going to become really mainstream until for 5 years from now. Like, well, 5 years from when I came in, like that was my mindset coming in. I don't think NFTs are going to hit. Like, we're not even talking about metaverses, VR, and things like that. Like that was just NFTs. And when I say NFTs really hitting mainstream, I mean you not being able to buy a home or a car and stuff all around the world using NFTs, where NFTs is just an everyday part of our life. I think that that's at least 5 years off. So considering that, like, I mean, how could VeVe be this huge mega giant, and it like NFTs are not even really popped off and mainstream yet? Yeah, like the art and the art and stuff is going crazy, but that's like, this is just an entertainment side really of what NFTs are actually going to be. NFTs are going to be a very, very valuable key piece of our society. Like you'll be able to literally have like social security numbers and things like that. Literally being able to identify people using NFTs, like that's the future we're heading to. So I think that we're still just so early, and people don't look into things like, what is the actual use case and value proposition of an NFT? What is the use case and value proposition of metaverses? Like, and then realize that VeVe is doing all of this combined, like crypto. Like what's the value of all of this stuff? And the fact that one company is trying to do this all, as well as working in licensing and doing some of the hardest things in the world, like working in tech, the stuff that takes the longest, like securing these type of deals. Like they were working on the Disney deal since 2018, and it just came out like last year. So like, people don't realize just how much goes into what VeVe is doing, and they jump into an investment, be like, okay, this should take 2 or 3 years, and then when it doesn't take that amount of time, they're like, oh, it's a bad investment. VeVe's dying. Like, VeVe hasn't even got started yet. What do you mean? But yeah,
100%. They just announced Knight Rider as the drop for tomorrow.
Oh, really?
They just put out a tweet. So that's pretty cool. I'm actually pretty excited about that. It's interesting that they announced it today for tomorrow. Normally they give a little bit more lead time than that, but that's pretty cool. So I'm assuming it'll be drivable. Don't quote me on that. I haven't read the article yet, guys, but that's pretty exciting. So
This looks sick.
let's see. It's only it's $120 list price for the vehicle. It's a rare, and it looks like it's a one of one to complete a set, and there's 9,500 editions. And
Mm,
the license is Universal Games and Digital Platforms. Never
Universal
even
Games.
I've never even heard of that before.
I mean,
Universal Games and Digital Platforms.
yeah, I've never heard of that either, but it definitely
2022
sounds like it should be
Universal
drivable.
City Studios. So I guess it's a subsidiary of Universal, but that's I mean that's really cool. The leveraging NBC and stuff. So that'll be yeah, I'm excited to see that, and we'll see. Yeah, cool, cool. That's exciting.
Yeah, sick.
That is exciting.
All these vehicles, like with the vehicles, with them confirming the DeLorean is going to be drivable soon, it's making me think some type of racing game or something's going
Yeah,
to be coming out. Like it's like they're doing a lot with vehicles lately. So I'm looking forward to this. The Aston Martin just came out. Like it'll be crazy if they release some type because people need something to do, and that's one of my biggest catalysts that I see being able to burn Omi or yeah burn Omi basically. But
yep,
then it's a gray area when you think about how people would actually be able to use the Omi token. So that's something that we need to the community needs to discuss and stuff like that as well. But I think that vehicles could be huge, especially if you go really in depth, as in changing pieces out, changing out tires and stuff,
yep,
like tires with better traction, like really being able to upgrade your vehicle and having to spend a couple of dollars like of OMI anytime you want to upgrade. So then you got people from all over the world, like when one side of the world sleep, the other side's upgrading their cars, then vice versa. And
yeah,
just kind of like just like having an incentive to use cars to race like a and just not even anything crazy. Like you don't need a need for speed type quality or something like that. Just something fun, like something basic, and where stats matter. And like if they add that type of gamification, it'll be insane. And that's just one type of game. Like they could add multiple different types of games like this. So it's just the potential is endless, but it is a matter of when they're going to do this. Because I saw someone say, "Oh, the VeVe verse is years out." I mean, I really wasn't expecting it to like they said we'll see it by the end of this year. I wasn't expecting them to say something like that. I actually expected it to be years out. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, who
yeah.
knows?
Well, and that's it. And I think that that's the biggest thing is for me, it's not. I've come to terms with the fact that I believe, at least for myself, that everything on their roadmap they will eventually deliver on. But I think what, as a community, we need to do a better job of doing is not focusing so much on the time frames in which it's going to happen, because we've seen it now. We've been here before, and they're terrible with time frames. And so even the most recent AMA, when they're like, hey, focusing on adding in OMI utility in Q2, well, Q2 started a day ago. I wasn't expecting it yesterday, but like I'm just gonna go. If it happens, it happens, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. At least they're focusing on it, and it's what it's being worked on right now. Because what people don't realize or focus on is that, especially with the OMI token, like we have to be very careful with a lot of the government regulation that's coming out right now, that we're not doing something that's going to immediately get us classified as a security, and then we just get wrecked as a project because they put a bunch of sanctions and stuff. Like VeVe needs to make sure that everything that they do enough research, they speak to their legal counsel to make sure that what they're doing is regulatory compliant, and that it's not going to put them in some form of legal gray area where they put themselves in a position to get wrecked, which is, I think, part of the reason why they stopped doing buybacks, is because there was obviously concerns from their legal counsel that if they continue to do buybacks with, I'm assuming at least without any other utility for the token, they were going to be in some trouble with conceivable buybacks and being classified as a security, because it might have failed the Howey test. So I really like that they've taken a step back from that. I also, for what it's worth, as like an OMI nerd when it comes to running numbers, I always felt that the buybacks were kind of gimmicky anyways, because realistically, there's going to be so many mechanisms put in place to burn OMI directly from the circulating supply that I didn't feel like the buybacks were going to be the catalyst that mattered anyways, with staking coming with the OMI utility program, with burning OMI directly from the circulating supply with every collectible sale in the secondary marketplace, with burning OMI through land sales and non-specific IP in the VeVeverse, and then possibly third-party token integration, which may also have an impact on the OMI. It's just, there's so many catalysts. And I guess on that note, because you've talked about some features that you're bullish on for VeVe, is there anything specifically with the OMI token that, because as we know right now, the price is under, 0.003. We've obviously seen a pullback in the last month or so. We were at highs of, 0.008. How are you feeling about the OMI token kind of short term? And what are you looking forward to kind of see some push to the upside on that?
I'm not really like I think that VeVe is going to be the biggest catalyst for the token. But at the same time, I'm not really a fan of the crypto side of things. Like I said, like this is proof. Like the token, how everything is behaving. Investors, in my opinion, are way too emotional. So I want VeVe to be the biggest catalyst and the biggest thing fueling this success. Like people who have no idea this is a crypto, constantly just burning stuff by just enjoying to use the things that VeVe is offering, and that's burning the supply of the OMI token without ever even needing the crypto side. Like I want crypto people to be completely irrelevant. I want there to be 100 million people on this platform. So no matter how much money these crypto people got, like if it's a million of them, like it never is able to even put a dent in the hundreds of millions of people that's on VeVe. So that's why I invested, because I think that this actually does have the potential to reach so many casual people that it really outweighs by far the crypto people. And yeah, like that's really what I'm looking forward to with the OMI token, because yeah, like this is how the community is right now has just proven to me like that they can't, that they're like, it's too emotional. I don't like that. I don't like that.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think one of the issues we're running into right now with the token as well is it's far too easy to manipulate the price of the token for someone that has quite a few tokens. Is, we're only getting trading volume of like $3 to $3.5 million a day, which compared to a lot of the other, I put out a tweet the other day, like a lot of the other NFT projects that are within the top 100 for market cap, like Axie, Sandbox, Decentraland, like Wax, all these projects, they have 24-hour trading volumes. Every single one of them have 24-hour trading volumes of over $100 million. And VeVe, or the OMI token, is the only one that has a trading volume that's just like, it's embarrassing. Like it's like $3 million in 24 hours. It's an embarrassing trading volume. And I don't think a lot of people understand the correlation between, like you said, the amount of eyeballs that end up on the project with the VeVe, and when they add in that utility for the token, the impact that it will have on the token itself. Because the highest 24-hour volume that we've ever had on the OMI token was on March 13th of 2021, and it was 120. It's like 121 million. And on that day was the all-time high of the token that we had at 1.3 cents. So not to say necessarily that trading volume is always an indicator of upward price action, but generally the more people that are trading the token, the more holders that there are, and the more holders that there are with the more volume, the more valuable the token becomes with its market cap. So that really gives you an idea of where we sit right now, where a lot of these other projects, that's their average 24-hour trading volume. And for VeVe and for the OMI token, it's the highest that we've ever seen. And it's what gave us our all-time high. So once we start to see some of these exchange listings that David, you spoke on in the most recent AMA, he was kind of cryptic in it, but he, made a point to reference that he knows that we want top 10 exchanges. We all know what are in the top 10 exchanges. We know what the number one exchange is. It's like, that's him referencing these things. So, I mean, I think it's safe to say that we will see a Binance or a Coinbase listing at some point this year, and hopefully some secondary exchange listings as well. Whether it be a KuCoin, a Gemini, a Kraken, or something like that. And then, other exchanges as well. And that will really, once we get the utility for the token, will drastically add value to holders. And I think part of the reason that they're not giving us those exchanges right now, because that's the reason we migrated to the Ethereum mainnet from the Go chain, was so that we could get listed on these exchanges. I think part of the reason they're not giving it to us right now is they're actually, as weird as it sounds, kind of protecting us, because they don't want to put a position in place where we get listed on exchanges, but there's really no reason to hold the token other than it being listed on an exchange. And then everyone buys it. And then the whales who know better because they've seen it sell into that. And then people get wrecked because they buy in at all-time highs. And then the token drops 80% again because there's no reason for it to be up there. And then a bunch of people are just upset. Like, well, why'd you list this token? It's not valuable. I think they're aiming, and that's why they're focusing on Q2 to give OMI token utility. They want to make sure we have the utility before we get those exchange listings later in the year. And I think when both of those things happen, I think we're going to see some pretty significant price action on the token. I don't know if you have any thoughts on kind of the price action that you're hoping for, but with those catalysts in mind, like, do you have an idea of what you think the token might be able to do with some utility in major exchanges?
You mean like in like a year's time or
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
time?
Well, whatever time. I mean, short term, I don't think much is going to happen. But whatever end of year. I saw someone earlier in the chat said they didn't think that we would even hit 1 cent by the end of this year. Mind you, if they don't add in any of the catalysts we're waiting for, I agree with that person because there's no reason to buy the token. But let's say for argument's sake that in Q2 they do add in some OMI utility, we do get OMI to NFT. The web app is rolled out and people can start to stake in Q3. And then around Q3, we also get a major exchange listing, whether it be, a Binance or a Coinbase. Like, what do you think the impact on the token could be with those catalysts?
I mean, it's hard to say. Like, it just how much they actually do, how much they add, how much utility we see, like staking the benefits. Like, it could do so much. It could be something just completely unexpected, like something super explosive, or something just simple. That's why I mainly just stick to long term, because short term, like, we thought that the token would be farther along this year, but that's because we were told Catalyst we would be farther along when it comes to Catalyst as well. So like, I've just come to expect delays. So I don't know what we could actually, like, what we can know for certain is going to be here when they say that something's coming. So I always just factor in the fact that, yeah, we don't know if this is necessarily coming or when it's coming. We know that it's going to come, but when? Like, even with the whole buyback situation, like regulation, now we have to wait for that to be more clear before that discussion is even on the table again. So it's just, yeah, there's so many different factors. The token could just explode and do something Dogecoinish, or it could just be, just something simple, like just like something like all-time high again. I wouldn't be surprised to see it hit all-time high again. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. It hitting all-time high again this year, but it really depends on if they actually deliver some token related things.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I think that's the biggest thing we have to see, how fast they start delivering, because they also could be doing some stuff that's unexpected. They could be. We know that Dan was working on the VeVeVerse at one point in time. He was literally coding it himself at one point in time. So that could be farther along than people realize. Like, people think that it's taking years. That could be ready to go. It could be something else that they're waiting on. So we never know where the company is at. Like, sometimes they shock us in a good way, sometimes they shock us in bad ways. But it's like, it's never a dull moment.
It's never a dull moment indeed, for sure. I agree with you. And I think one of the pieces of FUD that we've always seen historically when it comes to the token, and something that I'm kind of happy to see, is being addressed by just time and people realizing. I remember when we first came in the community and I was watching your videos when I first joined, is founder token unlocks were a big concern for people. Is the founders are gonna dump on everyone, and it's just going to be a mess. And I think we've seen through, all 4 founder token unlocks that have taken place, the major ones, the 18.75 billion that has happened 4 times. We've really realized that that's just not the case, and that they're really not touching their tokens. Like, if you look at the blockchain data, you can see that the tokens are literally just sitting in 2 wallets right now and haven't even been touched. I believe that the last unlock is taking place on April 10th, and it's not even a founder. It's like 1 billion tokens, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, I wish I had a billion tokens, but it's not the 18 that we've been seeing historically. And after that, all the token unlocks are complete, and it's the max circulating supply that we will ever see for the token. How do you feel now, a year later, knowing that we're essentially at the highest token circulation that we will ever see? And now all they're going to be doing is adding in features and incentives that are going to start to reduce that circulating supply from the max at about 314 billion, and continue to have it work down. Do you have an idea in mind of what you're hoping to see burned in the next little while? Or are you excited about any one catalyst that may burn the OMI token? And what do you think that that could do for kind of the morale for holders to start to see that circulation dwindle.
I think in the short term, one of the biggest catalysts I'm excited about is definitely going to be staking. And not just staking on VeVe, while that's going to be huge, but staking on exchanges as well. So, I just want to see what staking is going to do to that supply, because I think that that's going to be what causes the biggest boost in things in the short term, and that's what's going to give us that bullish sentiment in the community again. Also, like the exchanges and stuff, of course, like liquidity is very, very important for people to get their money in and out. Like we need the whales here. Whales, like the project is just not investable for whales that's not already in it. So like you got to have an extreme amount of faith to be in this project right now if you're a whale. There's so many other opportunities. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to I'm looking forward to seeing what staking does. I think that's going to be probably the biggest in my opinion.
I agree as well. And I think there's a lot of whales that, if they're incentivized correctly, would definitely lock up their liquidity and staking. And I think it will have a pretty significant impact on the price, especially if Akomi rolls it out correctly. And I had Reese on the channel a couple months back when they had rolled out OUP v0.1 and had a great conversation with the community. I think there was over 500 people participating in the live, and a ton of people were able to add in their feedback and insight as to what they'd like to see out of the program. And I think, Akomi is really going to take that feedback and make sure that they roll it out in an effective way for holders, to make sure that they're incentivized, make sure that OMI to NFT is accessible for everyone, and to make sure that those things that we're looking for in order to want to lock up are there. And like you said, I think exchanges allowing the staking of the OMI token, even if it's not to receive OMI, it might be to receive something else or whatever the case may be. I think that it will be, it'll definitely be bullish for the price action of the token. And I'm very much looking forward to OMI to NFT, because realistically, it's very hard, like you said, for whales to add any liquidity into the project right now. Adding $600 at a time via a credit card is not a sustainable purchase model when people are looking to buy, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars worth of collectibles. Which is partly why you're seeing a lot of them turn to the secondary market off app to acquire this. It's not because they want to necessarily circumvent any system. It's just they want to buy things and they don't have a way to do it effectively right now. I think it'll be very easy to see some of these people who are spending 100 ETH on one JPEG on OpenSea coming over and just sweeping a bunch of floors of a bunch of these collectibles that they think are going to be valuable. Now, with that being said, I don't think everything on the app is going to be valuable. And I think that that's something that we need to get out of a mindset mentality, is that everything's just automatically going to 10 or 20x when you buy it. As the market begins to become more saturated with collectibles, I think people are going to have to be careful to kind of pick and choose the collectibles that are the most likely to appreciate in value. And I guess on that note, I know you said you haven't been participating in the primary market a lot, maybe few and far between. You pride yourself on someone who makes, some pretty good moves on the secondary market. Is there anything that you've been doing to focus on? Is there like specific sets or collectibles that you're more bullish on long-term than anything else that you'd like to focus on, or that you have acquired that you think will do well?
Definitely. All right. With these prices, definitely the golden moments. You have golden moments. You have like a freebie is Woody. like that's the first Toy Story, and like everybody knows Woody, man. Like I don't know why he's priced that low. But yeah, Woody's an insane one. It's a lot of opportunity right now, and that's pretty much the golden moments. It reminds me of when the last ones came out before people actually knew where they were going to go. It's like, but except for we know now that we know this time the OGs actually know. But in terms of sets, I don't collect sets.
Okay.
I strictly collect for profit. So yeah, and like there's no reason to have a whole full sets. I have multiple of certain pieces and stuff like that. So that's the way that I collect. But yeah, definitely the golden moments is a huge opportunity. A lot of the ones that just came out, and I mean for $200, like if this stuff is easily hitting a 1K floor. Not financial advice, but easily hitting a 1K. Like I think a 1K is damn near a guarantee. But that's just my opinion.
I 100% agree with you. That's why I bought a dozen Winnie the Pooh's, and it was for that exact reason, because I never thought that we would see under like a $400 to $500 floor on that. And when they were down at $300, I was like, "There's no way I'm passing up this opportunity." Because, like you said, we've been there. We've seen Elsa at $200. We've seen Homer and Bart at retail. We've seen R2D2 at $300. Like we've seen it. You know what I mean? And people don't necessarily know, and you can tell them, and they still don't necessarily agree or believe you. But we've seen it, and we've probably missed out on a ton of opportunities. I'm sure when you joined the app, you wish that you had picked up a bunch of Todds at $200 to $300, and I feel the exact same way. And now I'm trying to play catch up after the fact, and had to compensate with a bunch of a bunch of physicals in the background.
You gotta look at it from the community's perspective. Like, I mean, because if Dr. Profit would have came to me when I first joined this project and told me to collect a bunch of Todds, I probably still wouldn't have did it. It's risky. It's like, I don't know if these is going somewhere, but obviously he turned out to be a genius. And like, I mean, I should have bought it then, but I mean, so I can get why people kind of don't listen to us when we say things like, "Yo, this is going to go crazy," because sometimes you just have to touch the fire to know that it burns. Like, so this they gonna learn.
You know what? It's interesting because I find, and not to blame anyone because we're all human, and I get the sentiment, but it's really interesting. I find people are more bullish and more willing to spend money when things are running up than when things are retracing, and it's really interesting. I knew people that were buying, expensive collectibles when they were $50,000, who won't buy them now that they're, less than half the price. And it's really interesting because it's like, well, you believed in it when it was at all-time high. Why don't you believe in it now necessarily, right? And there are some people in the community that are definitely taking advantage of it. And shout out to them. They'll put out their post. I saw one guy, and he bought like 4 Fantastic Four #1 secret rare comics the other day. He just bought a Marvel comic #1 secret rare yesterday. And it's like, people that are like, this is when you're going to make that life-changing money. And so, people have the means and are able to take advantage of it, and they find those right collectibles to focus on, they're going to do extremely well for themselves. And I've done my best to try and focus on those opportunities right now in the short term, because, everything is under 50% below all-time high. And even if we never hit back above all-time high, it's like, you're still going to get some solid returns. So it's interesting. And, I'm going to ignore your name, or hopefully it's ironic and that you're not actually a bot, but I have 68 sets and 345 collectibles, 67 comics. So I've definitely done a little bit of a different approach than Cavell. I had the mentality at the time that I wasn't going to focus on sets, but then it becomes almost like an addiction. Like you get one and it's like, I got to finish it. And so I've probably gone a little harder on sets than I probably should have, but we'll see. We'll see what strategy works better long term. I think Cavell's strategy from a pure financial perspective will definitely work better for him, especially if he's been able to pick up duplicates. But for me, it's just been kind of fun to see, I never know what collectible is going to be the most valuable long term. So if you diversify into a little bit of everything, and I've still made a focus on the golden moments, I've completed every set and have duplicates of all the ones that I think are going to matter. But it's interesting for sure. So we'll see that. We'll see how that goes, and hopefully once Omid NFT comes out, I'll be able to consolidate some of those sets. I remember, and not to bring up a sore subject, but I remember back in, I want to say it was November, you and I both put out a tweet, ironically on the same night, which was, for the record, not planned in any way, that we both wanted to sell our collectibles for Omi. And we got kind of crucified for it in the community, and that's fine, whatever, here or there. But how are you feeling about that decision in hindsight now? Like, I know you didn't, and I didn't either, but how are you, like, are you glad that didn't pan out, or how are you feeling about
that? I mean, that was right, but that was before it hit all-time high too. So yeah, I mean, I would have been pretty mad, but because Omi, that would have been a terrible decision. I thought it's just so many expectations that I had based on the teams, like me thinking the team would actually deliver, because it wasn't set in stone then that, okay, they just don't hit deadlines, they don't hit them at all. Like, I think now it's more of an obvious thing, like don't listen to their timelines. So like that would have been bad. That would have been pretty bad.
I agree. And it's I mean, I guess for me, my only concern about the collectibles, and bearing in mind that I've collected almost everything thus far, is I'm concerned about, and I don't know if you share this concern or not, but in my mind, everything that is on VeVe is OMI because it's backed by it, and especially once we have OMI to NFT and it's burning from the circulation supply. So anything that's bought on VeVe supports the OMI token. But if you focus on buying collectibles on VeVe, not everything on VeVe is going to turn out to be valuable. So how do you feel? How do you feel about the diversification aspect between now? I know you said on the app you're not completing sets. You're specifically just focusing on the Disney and the stuff that you believe is going to be valuable long term. But how do you feel about the diversification between VeVe and Ecomi? Because I put out a tweet the other day and did a poll. And interestingly enough, it was like 2,400 people voted, and it was a tie between should you focus on VeVe, should you focus on Ecomi, or should you do 50-50? And 38% said VeVe, 38% said Ecomi, and the other 24% said a mix between. So it was literally like a dead split between 2,400 people. So I know when you started in the community, you were very much an OMI maxi. I've always been the same way as well. But now that you've had the opportunity to invest in the collectibles, like what has your strategy been, or what do you envision that you will do long term? Like, are you going to flip collectibles into OMI? Are you going to use some of your OMI to buy collectibles and vice versa? Like, do you have any thoughts on that?
OMI is still my priority for sure. I think it's the only way that you're not really gambling, because it's like, at this point we can't really lose. There's going to be a certain point, like when you like we're in season what season is it? 2, 3, like
three, 4 going on 5. What is it?
like it's just
three,
so
three
far.
going on 4. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we're getting to that point where these seasons are like it's like the first 3, okay, like damn near anything you grab in the first 3, chances are it'll be valuable. But now we're getting to that area where some is going to be some, like when whatever they drop, if they drop Darth Vader in season 5, that's still Darth Vader. So like certain pieces, it's going to be important, but it's like everything else, not so much. So it's just OMI is just safer because now like we have everything from the earlier seasons at this point. So and it just makes more sense to just go for OMI token, because now you're putting your money into anything that gets bought on VeVe, as opposed to just now trying to gamble on which one. It's like almost buying like a S&P 500 over just getting all the stocks. Like there's no. Yeah,
I like that. Actually, I really like that analogy. I think that's really spot on. Like you said, is OMI is backed by every collectible. Whereas if you buy a collectible, yes, it's backed by OMI, but you're counting on that collectible being valuable. And even me, like I have 3 partner statues, but even I'm concerned that even something as valuable as the partner statue, like how many buyers are there going to be at $100,000? How many buyers are there going to be at $200,000? So like, well, I think that it will hit those levels. It's what is your liquidity, right? Because you can own a collectible, but it's not fractionalized. So once you sell that collectible, unless you have a duplicate, you no longer own that collectible. Whereas if you own the OMI token, you can sell some OMI tokens and you still own more OMI tokens. So I really like the idea of being able to do that transition, which is why a lot of times when people panic about the fact that MTL is not here yet, and granted, it probably should be, but it's not, and that is what it is. I always tell people, like, yes, it sucks, but like for me, I'm going to be using OMI to NFT. I don't even care about the MTL, because I, for one, am not going to be giving up 10% of all of the money that I've made just to pay a fee. Like that's absurd. Like I would never do that unless I absolutely needed the money, in which case, yeah, that's the only option available to you. But OMI to NFT is going to be the much more logical transition, in my opinion. It'll be far cheaper, and you'll still be able to convert it into, a stable coin and withdraw it to your local account or whatever via your banking institution. So I think that that's definitely the avenue to take. And I agree with you. I think OMI is the way to go, but it's interesting because, and not to say that this is an opportunity that's come up, and even if it was, I'd probably turn it down. But I was running the numbers for fun in my head last night, and I was like, you know what? If I sold my entire collectible, like everything that I owned at floor right now, based on the price of OMI, I'd get like 35 million OMI. And I was like, and that was at 0.5. That wasn't even at like through MTL doing that. It was like, if I wanted to sell it off market and just was like, nah, like 35 million OMI. And I was like, oh man, like, like for a second, I was like, I was going to do it for like 11 million back in November. So like, and now it's 35. So I'm like, man, and like once Omi to NFT comes out, it's like 70, and we're 50% from all time high. So like, I'm like, so like, and this is where you get into troubles because I'm like, man, if we 2x and Omi to NFT comes out and I can get 100 million Omi for my collection, like I'm like praying for Omi to stay low right now. I'm like, please stay low because I like the second Omi to NFT comes out, like I'm gonna liquidate as much as I can just to get Omi because I mean, well, I believe in VeVe long term, and I think that it's going to be an absolutely foundational project. What people forget is that the Omi token is not just VeVe specific. It's going to be used in everything, and all the third-party token integration, everything that they're using is going to be Omi. VeVe is just one project. It's the only project we know of right now, and it's massive in our minds, so it's what we focus on. But it's like betting on Omi is just, oh, there's just something about it that is, it gets me excited. So I'm looking forward to seeing how we navigate this as these opportunities come up. I fear for people like Randy, who once the OUP comes out and you can bid Omi tokens on getting drops. I'm worried about him because it's like he's just gonna be like, oh, bid Omi on this, and his stream will influence him and whatever. But it's gonna be really interesting to see that transition take place. Speaking of your collectibles and transitioning, you have, to my knowledge, and I hope I'm not putting you on the spot if you sold it, but you still have your Spider-Man, don't you?
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Nice.
I don't sell.
Nice. Do you have like a goal in long term for him? Like, do you have like a relative price that you're hoping to offload it on? Because that's probably the most valuable collectible you own, I think, right? Like, do you have, because you got it on drop too, I think, didn't you?
Yep. Well, that's my highest profit percentage game.
That's incredible, man. No, that's great. I honestly, I was looking at the prices because they were down at 26K for a moment, like 3 days ago. And I was like, I could sell a Walt and a Todd and pick up a Spider-Man. And I know you're very familiar with my Spider-Man disaster story. So I thought about it because I'd still have 2 Walts and I'd still have a Todd. I didn't end up pulling the trigger because with fees, I was like, I'm probably not going to get it done in time. And then it jumped back up to 31. But like, do you see collectibles like this just basically disappearing once certain whales come in and sweep floors? Or do you think that these collectibles are still going to be like accessible for people for a while?
They're definitely disappearing, in my opinion. And the reason I believe so is because I think that there's another aspect to actually earning from this project that people are sleeping on, which is the ability to make passive income through renting in the metaverse. So when you consider this, it's like I made an example in one of my videos where you could literally have like you have a whale, you buy land, you buy 3 pieces of land, you buy up an entire collectible. Then you make a shop selling this collectible or renting this collectible. You have a shop renting this collectible. Then you create utility for this collectible. So now you have the utility, you have the collectible, and now you can incentivize people to actually need your collectible. Like you just hire someone else to make some type of fun experience surrounding in the VeVeverse somewhere. Or if you're a whale, you're more than likely know some famous people or something like that. Get a famous friend to come and perform in a VeVeverse or something, and there you have it. Now everyone is going to have to come and get your collectible, and now your collectible is just it's a thing that people want. It's something that people need. So I think that aspect where you're renting collectibles and have that passive income coming in, that's going to be a huge thing as well. And I think that Wells is going to want to get as many of these pieces as they want, especially those with that type of passive income mindset, goal-oriented mindset. So, I think that they're definitely going to be buying up everything. I think that, especially with 100 million people being able to come onto this platform, like, well, if that's even still the case, because KYC, like I said, it depends on KYC now and whatever other barrier to entries that they create. But yeah, if we get to the point we can have hundreds of millions of people, like it's a lot of money, and it's a lot of money out here. So chances are it's going to be some pretty big names who jumps on this. Like we already know people like Snoop Dogg, Justin Bieber, like these people are in the NFT space, and they're not even the ones with big money. Like yeah, I mean they're not doing bad. I wish I had their money, but I mean in terms of what's out there, they're kind of small. So when you take that into consideration, like we could have some huge opportunity. It really comes down to how if VeVe delivers. Like if they deliver this Ready Player One style metaverse, which I have no idea how they could possibly do it. Like I don't know who they could hire, who they could partner with. Well, Disney, like if they partnered with Disney, that would do it. But I don't know if they're going to. And I know I did hear, like I always say this, I heard the Disney CEO explain what his metaverse was going to look like for Disney, and it literally mirrored the things that David Yu was saying. So I mean, I just always found it weird how those words connect. Like he literally saying the same phrases that David Yu say. I'm like, oh, they definitely talked about this. Are they working together? But that's crossed my mind. But yeah, I think renting is going to be a massive stream of income that people kind of sleep on. So that's the tough part for me about kind of like having a strategy, like selling some of my collectibles and then going over into OMI, because it's like, do I want to get some type of property or something and rent my stuff out, or just wait for like, yeah, I don't know. It's just like we don't know what could possibly happen. Like, would I just like, because I'm not a whale, so does it make more sense for me to just sell what I have to a whale so they can do that? I just take the profit and I just put it in on me. Like, who knows? Like, maybe it only makes sense for a whale to buy up a whole collection and do that. And so yeah, I don't know.
Well, and like you said, if a whale can, like, I'll just use a random one that I don't own, like Donnie as an example, that only has 150. Like, if one whale can own the entire supply and you need or want that Donnie for something, then you're going to rent it, right? So if you can control the lion's share of that asset, then you can dictate its value for renting and generate passive income, like you were saying. And I think there was a guy that actually, when we had the hoverboard drop come out, he bought like 400 of the Marty Common hoverboard back when it was like $10, because he was like, I believe that we're going to see some form of utility in the future, and I'm just going to open up like a rent like a hoverboard rental shop in the metaverse. And it's really interesting that some people are taking advantage of these opportunities. And I think mint size for some of these collectibles sounds somewhat large, but like you said, like even if we had 10 million people on the app, a lot of these season 1 and season 2 and even season 3 collectibles that have less than 10,000 editions, like when you're talking about under 1/100th of 1% of people that can access that collectible, and you consider the fact that a lot of these are owned by multiple people, there's going to be that valuation. And I think it's really interesting to kind of look at each NFT on the platform as its like own individual project, because a lot of them are going to take on a life of their own where they have their own utility within the metaverse, and David Yu and Dan Carlers have talked about this in previous AMAs, where they can add in utility pretty much at any time for any of these collectibles. So if they see a collectible that isn't getting a lot of love or hasn't been selling recently, they can add in utility, where if you own a Kripken, something happens, or whatever the case might be, right? So it's going to be really interesting to see how they go about addressing that moving forward. Yeah. Shout out to Taps Trades.
What's up, Taps?
Yeah, we're doing Rock'em Sock'em Robots for sure. Yeah, I don't know if the title page showed up on the YouTube video, but that's why I found the Terminator bots and figured we'd have some fun with that. But it's it's definitely been an interesting journey thus far. And then obviously dealing with these issues, specifically, I often wonder, resource wise, how many resources VeVe has to dedicate to a lot of these issues. And it seems like when one issue crops up, 3 more follow. Do you feel as though VeVe is adding onto their team efficiently in order to address these issues? Or do you think that they're still kind of behind the curve in hiring people to have these issues addressed? Or is it that they're just using a lot of third-party partners to address these issues? Or what do you think?
They're definitely behind. They're definitely behind in hiring and getting that done, I believe. I think that they just don't. I don't think they have enough capital. I just don't think they have enough. I think that a lot of people think that they're doing a lot better than they actually are. And yeah, I mean, I think that they're kind of playing catch up right now. And I mean, hopefully they get ahead. Hopefully they do have some type of strategic relationships or partnership or something that goes on and really just helps push them to the next level. Like they could be working on something for all I know. Like we just don't know what they have going on. But yeah, I don't think that they're hiring properly. Based on I heard K was talking about how they're not paying enough for the certain development jobs, like how he makes more money and he sits in Twitter spaces all day. So
yeah, I saw him say that. Yeah, that was funny.
That was hilarious. If that's not something that he would accept, and like how would you expect someone else to accept that? So Yeah, I think that they could definitely be doing better. So it's just going to take some time. Um, and yeah, like the right moves, but I do trust that they know what they're doing. I trust that they have the right people in place to have this all figured out.
I agree. And for me, it's always been a time frame issue. It's not that they're going to deliver the product; it's that they're going to deliver the product in a timely manner. And um, I think it's become more of a concern recently because of other developments that have been happening in the crypto space. I saw. We'll get into the one that I think shows a lot of respect and shout out to a lot of the community who's been checking it out. But Quid put out a tweet. I don't know if you saw it or not, but Quid put out a tweet yesterday, and they were basically trying to make fun of the fact that they have cash out available and that VeVe doesn't have cash out available. So they put out a tweet talking about how 60 straight weeks of being able to cash out our users, and then they put a hashtag like when cash out with a laughing face, and they got ratioed so hard it made me laugh. Like I actually audibly laughed out loud because yes, VeVe doesn't have cash out, and granted, it sucks, but like it's just so funny because it's like family, you know what I mean? Like we can talk trash to one another, but if someone else comes and talks trash to us, it's like no, you don't get to do that. Like no,
Exactly.
we bash ourselves, but you don't get to bash us. This doesn't work that way. And so many people were just like, nah, fam, like yeah, congratulations, you got to cash out your $2. Like happy for you, man. And like everyone was just merciless, and it was hilarious. But another project that has kind of jumped on the scene recently and seems to be doing well. I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about it because it's not available in Canada, so I haven't really looked into it. But HRO, have you checked it out at all? Have you? I mean, I've seen a lot of other content creators posting about doing pack openings and things of that. Have you took the time to check it out at all? Is it your kind of cup of tea or?
I haven't dove too deep into it. Even before, like, hey, Kay actually told me about it before it became this big trend. But yeah, I'm not really interested in diversification, honestly. I'm only interested in like if I have extra money, it's going towards BB. Like
Yeah.
that's just the way that it's gonna go. I mean, it's just I just look at it like if I know that this is going to be McDonald's, I'm not investing in Taco Bell. Like I don't need to invest in Taco Bell too if I know I have McDonald's right here. So yeah, I mean I have the number one that's all I really need. So
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, I think it's an interesting concept. I've never been someone who's collected like trading cards. Like even growing up, like yeah, I did Pokemon as a kid because it was the thing, but like I've never been like big on trading cards. I think I think that they're doing a really solid job of their rollout.
yeah,
Um,
looks
it,
amazing too. I
it
like
looks really good. The artwork's really good, and I mean, other than the fact that it's only available in the US and the UK, which I think I have no problem with that. Like if that's how you want to do your rollout, but you're really disenfranchising like 80% of the people that could be using your platform, and you're giving a lot of people that are entering first like a kind of an unfair advantage or like at least a head start because now I guess they have leaderboards and stuff, which I think is really cool, but now it's like if I wanted to catch up to someone like Kay, like I'd have to spend like 5 times the amount of money that he did to get more packs. And like so I don't know that I love 100% of what they're doing, but once again, I'm in a project that I don't love 100% of the stuff they're doing right now either. So I think it's cool that we're starting to see other um, projects succeeding and doing well. I don't think it's necessarily going to impact the core user base of VeVe that much because it's kind of a separate project. But I'm more so curious what your thoughts are on DC as an IP because it seems as though they're really branching out their IP to different platforms. I think they were on like Wax or something at one point. They were doing like that weird comic book thing that was like a cartridge. Maybe it wasn't on Wax. I don't remember where it was, but they were doing that. And then obviously we have DC Collectibles on VeVe, and then they have HRO, and then they're also doing another like standalone project that is like $300 and has like 200,000 editions, and they're adding in utility with that. Like, do you have any thoughts on? Because I mean, if we look at it, like Disney and Marvel have like it kind of feels like they're only going to be on VeVe, or at least they're only focused on VeVe with a lot of their FAs and everything. How do you feel about DC's approach to the collectibles most recently, spreading out everything?
I think that they're milking it and not in a good way. Like their IP is too many places right now, and I think that overall. this is good for VeVe. And I think that is bullish because if you watering down your IP, you're making it less valuable. Then it's really like it's getting to a point in time. Like DC is showing us what these businesses are going to do, what all the IPs are going to eventually be doing. They're all going to be milking it, giving it to a bunch of different people. So it's going to come down to what the companies actually do with this IP. What's the utility? Like what is actually going to make this piece valuable? Obviously VeVe has the first of a lot of this stuff, so that we're going to have that initial value just from the jump. But then, like long term, when new stuff is coming out, when there's no more first appearances, like 10 years from now, if these companies are still around, with VeVe, basically, what is actually going to make it valuable? So now you have to actually deliver. Do you have a plan for a metaverse? Is your metaverse going to be at the same level as Ready Player One, which is what VeVe is shooting for? Like so, it's the game is going to become less. The game, like right now, NFTs are still new, so everybody, oh, a licensed NFT, this is amazing. Like that's the state we're in right now. 5 years from now, it's going to be okay. What's the value proposition attached to this NFT? Can this get me in Disney World? Can this get me a free movie? Like what can I do with this? What's the value of me having this? And I think that's what is going to come down to. And I think that VeVe has the plan for the future. Like they're all about that aspect. Now, them being able to deliver it, now that's the thing in question right now. Like that's what, yeah. But I think that they're thinking like that. So I think that they're ahead in terms of thinking, planning, and honestly, like when you listen to Alfred Kahn and what he was talking about, even like some years ago, with that interview that was dropped by my man, what was his name? I don't remember.
Dane.
Yeah,
Author
Dane.
Down Under. Yeah.
Yeah, those videos, like Alfred Kahn, like they had some crazy plans even back then. So I just can imagine how they've improved these plans and perfected them. So yeah, it's just a matter of having the team being able to put that in place. And I think that VeVe has a solid roadmap to it, even if they can't share everything with the community.
I completely agree with you. I think that to me, it almost seems like an obvious natural progression. If Disney is going to give you all of their most historical and significant IP as FAs on the blockchain, and they're going to charge 6% for any secondary market sales, it only makes sense that there's going to be some form of utility in which those collectibles can be utilized in the metaverse. Now, whether that is in direct partnership with Disney or just, them giving them the stamp of approval to do it, I very much do believe that that's going to happen. And if their CEO is talking metaverse and metaverse would insinuate NFTs, where else? Like we've never even heard a grumbling of Disney or Marvel having their IP on any other platform. Like it just doesn't exist. So it almost seems obvious to me that there has to be some form of partnership happening behind the scenes with these two companies, and that they're going to work together towards the metaverse. And like I said, who knows, right? Like anything's possible. Maybe I'm completely off base on it, but to me, it just seems like an obvious progression that would be the outcome. I guess on the flip side, seeing DC give out their IP and kind of diluting their market. They're not diluting it in the sense that, like, yeah, they're trying to see which company is going to win, and maybe then they'll focus on that company. But we know that there's no secondary market royalties for DC collectibles on the app. We've seen the Marvel Mighties from Marvel come out, which appear to be like their own series exclusive to VeVe and will likely have utility inside any metaverse. Is there any concern long term that DC collectibles just don't become valuable on VeVe because there's no utility or conceivable utility that's added to them? Like, is that at all a concern, you think? Or do you think that DC will also have collectibles that you can use as avatars and things like that in the VeVeverse?
I think we'll probably get some utility. I don't know why they would not allow it. Yeah, I think that we'll get some type of utility. And depending on I think VeVe's biggest strength could be having community driven things. So if the community could bring value to these things as well, I think like if I wanted to do something where like if a whale wanted to buy up all the Todds or something and they create something where Todd is super coveted in the VeVeverse, I think that would be something that community could do. So if I would want to see VeVe have tools more so than them try to create everything, so the community can really bring all the value. Because I think the community is driven enough and creative enough to like look at some of these showrooms. Like the community can make some really sick stuff if they had the right tools. So
Yeah.
yeah, like and then it's not something that VeVe has to focus on. All they have to focus on is making sure the tools don't break. So if you have like maybe a death barrier or something for some type of mini game, make sure that doesn't spread across the whole map or something on accident. Like, so yeah, just making sure the stuff works.
Yeah, I actually really liked that video that you did. It was either December or January when you were talking about Fortnite, and you went through the map that you had built back at the time when you were on Fortnite, and you were talking about like scavenger hunts and mini games and things like that. And I really do feel like VeVe is likely working on iterations of that. Now, I think we always say we need to taper our expectations, and like you said, like the full VeVe-verse could be 5 years away for all we know. But I think in the short term, to have even like a more interactive showroom and be able to, I mean, just simple things like quality of life things. Like we still don't have comics in the showrooms. People still can't search up people very effectively. Like it's the only reason that I have collectibles listed in the marketplace right now is so that people can look me up and add me. Which obviously
Disney Plus.
Well,
like Disney Plus, like allow us to watch Disney Plus in the showroom, invite some friends over. That like you could watch a new movie every day and people would actually do that. I feel like just have friends over and watch Disney Plus together. Like you're already partnered with Disney, you already did a Disney Plus promotion. Why not have like just something where you can invite some friends over, have like a watch party together, something like that where you can actually, and that increases engagement on VeVe as well and watch time on Disney Plus.
I completely agree. And yeah, and you were talking about that as well, you know, being a content creator and then having a movie theater where you can, you know, share revenue with the whatever and host like an event or something. Like I think that would be a really cool idea. I think that there's a lot of really cool opportunities and things that they can take advantage of. And I think that the sentiment from the community and giving them the feedback that they need, because at the end of the day, they're a core group of people and they could only think of so many things that we would want. So to be able to get the feedback from the consumers would be really crucial, I think, to make sure that you're delivering on the best product that you can. So I'm looking forward to seeing how all of that gets rolled out. I think, you know, we'll look back in, you know, whether it's 6 months or 12 months, or even if it takes longer, and it'll be really interesting to you know, smile at these growing pains and realize that like we were going to be okay the whole time. We just couldn't see it, you know, at that exact moment because we were in it. And sometimes when you're so far invested and involved in something, it's hard to be able to zoom out and kind of look at it from the outside. So I think once we kind of get over some of these humps, the MTLs, the NFTs, the exchange listings, dealing with the bot issues and stuff, it'll be really interesting to see what comes up with. And I mean, Grand Theft Auto, which is one of the most successful franchises of all time when it comes to like role play and things like that. The graphics on it really aren't that great. Like if you look at it, like, I mean, the most recent one, like if you're running like a solid graphics card, sure. But like Grand Theft Auto San Andreas was super fun. You know what I mean? Like I didn't care that the graphics weren't great. It was the ability to be able to interact and like have fun. And I think if we can see something like that, maybe without all the shooting and all that stuff, because that might not be so much kid friendly, but you know, with just being able to interact in the surroundings in a metaverse with other people, I think it's going to be, you know, a really exciting journey for the project. Is there anything else that we've been going for about an hour and a half now? And shout out to the over 100 people that are watching right now. Thank you so much for spending part of your weekend with us. Is there anything else that you want to touch on that's going on with the project right now that you're excited about, that you're concerned about, that you hope they address, or kind of anything else that's on your mind?
Not at the moment. I'm just chilling, like waiting on some things to be delivered right now, man. I'm excited about. I'm just excited about seeing something new and something fresh. I think that right now, what the community actually needs is just something fun, something fun that you can't run out of. Like drops, you can run out of drops. You can not get drops for months at a time, and the math is never going to make sense. Like the only thing they could do to change people's drop experience is make so many additions that it's worthless. So I think that they just need something. Like we need a game. We need something for people to do. Like that's what I'm looking forward to. Seeing that first thing that's going to have people happy to be on VeVe around the clock. I think that that's what I'm most excited for, and I feel like it's coming. I feel like something's like this whole car thing. They keep dropping cars. They've been focusing heavily on cars lately, and then they did reveal those 2 articles with some other cars, like some months back.
Yep.
So yeah, like they've
100%.
been the car thing. Maybe they got us some type of racing game. Then I'm hearing the Epic Regal, I think is the company's
Yep.
name. That could be a game coming out soon. Like just there's so much stuff, so much different opportunities that I'm looking forward to. But I just think we need something so the community can chill out on the drop thing and focus on something positive. But yeah.
100%, man. And like you said, at the end of the day, if they can give us a reason to be on the app for more than 10 minutes a week, I think that it's going to be super important and super bullish for the project long term. Because right now, even I'll log on for the drop, I either get it or I don't, and then I'm logging right back off. There's no real like social aspect that incentivizes me to stay on and really partake in everything that they will have to offer. So like you said earlier in our conversation, I think it's important to remember that this is just the gift shop. And if people can taper their expectations to what is actually being offered right now, there'll be a little bit less stress until they're able to roll in and utilize those features that I think will benefit the entire community and the project long term. So I as well am looking forward to those. And I am glad to see that VeVe is taking some steps now to not only admit that they have a problem, but actively work to address it in the best way that they can. It will be some growing pains in the short term. We've been there before and we've come out of it stronger on the other side. And I believe this time will be absolutely no different. So thank you again, Cavell, for hopping on with me today and discussing for the community. Guys, I hope you found this valuable. Make sure you go subscribe to Cavell's channel if you haven't already. I'd be surprised if you haven't, but if you haven't, make sure to go check him out at Cavell Anderson on his channel, as well as on his social media, Twitter as well. And then you guys can check me out. Obviously, if you're watching me on my YouTube channel, you know where to find me, but feel free to subscribe as well if you haven't already. And then you can follow me on Twitter as well at FosterHilt. So thank you all again for hanging out with us today, and we will see you next time.